Hello, everyone.
Hello, John.
There. Great to see you.
Good to be here.
Thank you. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this webinar titled In, Out, and Through, featuring our guest presenters, John Dupuy, who is the founder, co-founder, co-owner of iAwake Technologies. I always like to say spiritual technologies because that's such a strong component. And also we're going to hopefully hear from Leigh Spusta, who is the musician who was involved in writing the music and the binaural beats too, I think, for In, Out, and Through. And we're really excited to hear from both of them. And John, I really appreciate your being here today.
You're welcome.
It's been so much fun working with you. John did a brilliant kickoff of the In, Out, and Through album. There's actually two of them, volumes 1 and 2, both featuring solely Anna Wise's three, I think, most powerful higher state meditations: Kundalini, gathering the healing energy, and the expansion and contraction of consciousness. And they're such powerful meditations. And, I didn't think they could be any more powerful until John and Leigh got hold of them. And they're so incredible. They did a iAwake, and we're going to talk about that too, meditation online just a few days ago. I tried to get word out to everybody, but we did get word out after the event happened so that you could all listen to gathering the healing energy. And it was just so powerful. Even though I had meditated to it before, honestly, I was vibrating for a good 2 hours after. It was just incredible what they did with these meditations, and getting them out to so many people. I mean, iAwake has a ginormous list of customers and adherents and faithful followers, and getting this work out to them too. So we are all deeply, deeply grateful that you're promoting not only Anna Wise, not only our ability to have these wonderful meditations. I see Lisa here now.
Hi, Lee.
Hello, you guys hear me?
Yes,
Yeah,
indeed.
yeah, we're
Welcome.
we're already rolling. So you just start paddling your surfboard with the wave and just join us.
All right, sounds good.
That's the thing. That's the thing. Yeah, but also, exposing more and more people all over the world to the mind, the awakened mind, just to everything we are and do. And we owe you a great debt for that, and hope that we are able to repay it in kind, and moreover by a factor of a billion. And so, welcome, welcome, welcome. So, John, I was wondering if you would just start by telling us something about iAwake, really how you got started. We probably won't have the pleasure of talking with Pam here, so I'd really like to hear a little bit about how you and Pam got connected up and gave birth to iAwake, kind of what your goals are, what you're doing there.
Yeah, well, I'll give you the short version. And I had been working with people suffering from addiction, alcoholics and drug addicts, for a long time, and I knew that meditation had to be a part of it. And I was trying to push beyond the mere 12-step model, which, total honor to save millions of lives, and it's great. But the problem, it just needs more to it, and it needed to be updated. So I was trying to do that in a wilderness program for that was specifically for people struggling with drugs and alcohol. And I wanted to add meditation, but I would try to get my, just newly off alcohol and drugs guys out in the wilderness to meditate. And I was like, it wasn't very successful. So I heard an interview with Ken Wilber and Bill Harris talking about binaural beats and all this stuff. And I was going, boy, is that half as good as he's letting it up to be. It's something I should check out. So, I put down my coin and sent off for it. And I had, and I'd studied transpersonal psychology in grad school. And so, I'd been struggling on and off meditation and yoga and stuff for years. And I put this on, and within a few days, I had a class 5, non-dual mystical experience. Just boom, this blew me out of the park. And I'd had other encounters before, and I certainly knew the literature. So I knew I wasn't going insane, but it was very interesting. But one of the things that came out in that particular opening was that the ego was very real too. That little speck of meanness, was also very real, and as real as a tree or a rock or anything else, right? And that people, when they say, "Oh, the ego's, it's not real," and they try to ignore it, it just leads to really bad problems where the ego comes and kicks your ass. So it was just this kind of combination of acknowledging the work of Western psychology and the ego, and this was all in just a flash of insight, right? Along with the non-duality that we find in the great Eastern traditions and the esoteric Western traditions also. And it was just there. And I was like, oh my God, this is just, I'm enlightened after 5 days. And I wouldn't necessarily say that, but it was a very powerful opening. And that started me on the path. And then for about 9 months after that, I had been suffering from really, really crippling depression, and about my brother's suicide and a lot of bad things that happened all at once. And in my house, and anyways, it's just this gory story. And all of my training as a therapist and nothing felt like I was trying to empty the ocean with a teaspoon or something. It just didn't prepare me for it. I was pretty crushed. And so I was struggling to try to get my life back and throwing my life into doing what I thought was noble things and helping people. And so I started releasing all this trauma through my body. For about 9 months, my wife would see me there, and I, just being present with the pain, and the opening experience had kind of enlarged the context, so I didn't freak out about the pain releasing. I just knew in some way that I was getting well, and that started me on that. And then I started using it with my students, and I thought, this is a really great technology because you don't have to have a big box or anything. We can do it in the wilderness. It's very transferable. And I started meditating with my students, and they started making great progress. And I was trying all the different technologies that were out at the time. That's where I came upon Leigh's work also. And I said, man, this stuff is a trip. And I got in contact with him, and I wanted to do use one of his soundtracks to do a guided meditation dealing with addiction and recovery. And we said, yeah, we kind of did it. And then I met this guy called Eric Thompson, who was the other co-founder of iAwake Technologies. And we talked, and we had a lot of the same experience, spirituality and depression. And he said, well, I'm making some stuff, and I think it's really good. And I listened to it, and it was really good. And so we just decided to do that. And I've been pushing this technology for Bill Harris and everything. Never think I'd make a dime off of it. It's just like, you got to listen to this. You got to listen to that. Bill sent me all his stuff. He said, man, you're like one of our best salespersons, and you don't cost me anything, So I thought, then you could make money doing this. Huh. But anyway, so we started, and we did PMP 1.0, 2.0, 3.0. And eventually I got back to my project that I was doing with Leigh, and I said, yo, Leigh. And we got back a hold of him, and and about 3 years into it, Eric Thompson, my wife and I, we were going in different directions, so we split up, and it was done very amicably, thank God. A lot of companies have brutal, split up experience or divorces or whatever, and it wasn't. He's still a friend, and I still respect him a lot. But then we said, well, what are we going to do? And then Leigh, and then now we have this stable, like 4 geniuses that are just creating our technology. And, the people, the cognoscenti, the people that know this technology are always remarking about just, they've used other, the other brands, and God bless them and everything. It says, your stuff is the best. And I have no credit for that at all, except being a strange attractor. And recognizing talent and trying to be fair and good and kind and respectful and generous to the people that I work with. So, Leigh, you wanna say something with that lead up?
Yeah. So John, I have about 200 questions. That wonderful background you gave us, but I will save them. I'm interested, and maybe we'll come back to them. I mean, just to mention a couple. We'll come to Leigh first, but I'd be curious to learn more about this wilderness work that you were doing, and how the people in addiction that were responding to these binaural beats and stuff, because you covered a lot of territory there, and there are a whole lot of interesting aspects. So let's make sure we circle back around to this.
Sure.
And another thing we want to circle back around to is exactly what are binaural beats. And so maybe, Leigh, we can turn to you for that and just talk to you a little bit about that. And I would be very interested, since we have asked John for his background, if you don't mind telling us a bit about you, how you got started as a musician into this.
Sure. Thanks for having me on, by the way. So yeah, many eons ago, it feels like now, as my beard starts changing color. When I was a kid, I became interested in music as a listener, and there's so many textures and fabrics and experiences that, cultural. I mean, the music was everything. It was great, I saw MTV kick off. I was a wee lad, but that was kind of where it, just to speak to my generation. But as a teenager, I became interested in spirituality, and it started to occur to me that there's a connection between music and sound and spirituality, and what is that? Most people, whether they pay attention to it or not, they're exposed to it in church music, or they might have come across chanting, om, all that kind of stuff. And so I started there, but not too late after that, I discovered hemisync.
How old
Right.
were you by then? How old were you?
I'd say I was about 16 when I discovered hemisync.
Wow.
And I was already playing guitar, and so I had kind of started to dig into different sources of music, but also these recordings from hemisync. I was like, what's that? And so that was my discovery into what binaural beats were, and that was kind of a game changer. And like, wait a second, we can use sound to target a brainwave state. So I just became very fascinated by that. And so although I would pursue music in different ways, I certainly started to really hone in on what can we do to shift and alter consciousness or assist in meditative states using sound. And how can we do it in a way that's interesting? Because I started to hear some things that they worked, but I was listening to large patches of white noise with somebody talking over it, or just different things that were interesting. But I'm like, oh, there's got to be a way to make it even more of an experiential journey, just with the sound alone. And so that kind of became, I think, my, even at the time, unspoken purpose. It became more clear as I went along. That's really what I was trying to do. But it was a process of discovery. And experimentation, discovery, and research just started piling up on itself until I started to create my own recordings. And I would incorporate binaural beats. I also incorporated what can be referred to as a heterodyne beat process, or that's a monaural beat, for instance. There's different approaches, different beat frequencies. I just explored all of it. And so the way I've come across things and put them together now is kind of a multifaceted approach, including the same way a film composer would approach sound. There's a psychoacoustic element to it. It plays a large part in what I do as well. We're cued by sounds and music in a way that moves us. It informs us on what kind of experience lays ahead, or it brings us into it. And we respond really well to that. So I started incorporating that into my soundtracks as well. And so
it almost sounds like a melodic approach.
Yeah.
And I did notice that about, of course, I was anticipating this event, and so while I was listening to Gathering the Energy, as they were streaming it online during the iAwake meditation, I did notice how you were almost and not just, well, I'm going to ask you the question,
Okay.
and better for you to explain it. But it did seem like there was an intuitive build-up of the sound, and you were wrapping the listener into a cocoon of sound, which
Right.
reminds me of what you just makes me. But
Yeah.
so you're throwing out all these terms, and can you just say a little bit about that? So monoacoustic sound, binaural beats, what are all these things? And were you still a teenager when you were doing that, or were you older by then when you started in earnest experimenting with these different, I guess, technical approaches?
Right. The actual recorded experiments that I would start to do happened probably by the time I was about 18. I started doing it in terms of nothing crazy, nothing that I would market and sell, but just kind of in the basement type of laboratory experiments. And so it did start with binaural beats as well as sustained low frequency tones, not extremely low, but like bass kind of tones with the synthesizer. Just these stretched out home-like tones are really amazing just on their own. And so by the time I was in my mid-20s, I think I started to really gather an approach and start to record things that I would want to share with other people. So that journey's been going on for about 23 years now. And so just to answer, so I'll go to the binaural beat, like what is it kind of question, those different things, but also what you said really is about wrapping the listener in the sound. That's a good way to put it in terms of what I feel like I'm trying to do. That it is as much, okay, we have a target, we're using technology, but I'd like to think that I get into an intuitive place. You know, I'm getting into that altered or that trance space myself when I'm creating this music, and then I, listen back to it. And if it's not putting me into that space, then I can't expect it's going to do it for anybody else. So there's a melodic quality without using a melody, for instance, there's a sensibility, there's something musical and interesting going on, but not so much that the conscious mind is going to latch onto it and get distracted by that. And so that's kind of that balance that we try to create. But within that, the technology that we also include in that would be certainly things like a binaural beat, which for those that don't know, very simply, when we introduce a sound signal in one ear, let's call it 100 cycles per second. And in the other ear, it's 110 cycles per second. The difference between those two frequencies is 10 cycles per second. When those two sounds combine in the air, normally there's a natural beat frequency of that 10 cycle per second or 10 hertz rhythm. We don't pay a lot of attention to it, but it's there and it works and it's a real thing. In nature, it's abundant, and that's part of how systems harmonize. And when you separate it, however, into headphones, those two different beats, there's no air inside of, there shouldn't be any air in here, right?
Some of us.
Right. So the brain knows there's supposed to be a beat frequency happening, but it's not present, so it internally generates that beat. It's an interesting phenomenon. The brain will actually synthesize that beat because it knows it's supposed to be there, because we didn't evolve with headphones stuck to our head, but this triangulation that the brain does.
The millennials did, I think, but not.
Well, you're right. That's right. However, that's what's going on. We're kind of introducing these sounds in a way that the brain has to say, what do I do with this? And so it uses what it knows and puts it together. And now we have a target there that we could say is 10 cycles per second. We're targeting an alpha state now, because the brain is like, oh, there's this beat rhythm must be there. And so both halves of the brain work together. You get a hemispheric synchronization effect, where there's kind of a sharing of information across the hemispheres of the brain. We get into that meditative, clear focus, but calm alpha state at 10 cycles per second, for instance. And so that's binaural beats. And then from there, really, there's variation on top of variation of how to approach and create rhythms and beat frequencies that the brain will entrain to. So we spoke about monaural beats. That's really going back to that idea that it happens naturally. So it doesn't have to be headphones. It's just speaking to two signals interacting and creates this beat frequency. There's also isochronic tones. The science had come across a discovery that the frequency following response, which is innate in humans and animals, actually, our brains are wired to kind of find a rhythm and match and be in sync with its environment. And so if we present that in what they call an isochronic tone, which is kind of an on-off type of frequency. So it's a pulse rhythm, boom, 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 boom. That's just as powerful, and actually, in many cases, more powerful than binaural beats. You're not getting the hemispheric synchronization per se with that alone. but it's a stronger frequency following response. That being said, then we move into a myriad of other approaches to guide the listener and their awareness into the state we want them to
And
be
you're
in.
blending all of this stuff, right?
That's right. Yeah, you don't want to use
Amazing.
just one because you can, but I mean, that's just intuitively, I just like, oh, it's just build it upon itself. And the way I approach the binaural beats is organic. I try to use the music itself to interact in such a way that it's producing these rhythms and these effects, so that it's kind of intrinsically a part of the composition. It's not some artificially injected element that's like, okay, we'll take a Bach piece and then just throw some binaural beats in there and now we got it. You can do that, but it's really a weak approach. The more integrated and holistic the soundtrack is, I think the better off the listener's experience.
Yeah, and I just want to say, Leigh, I think all of our people, and obviously you're manifesting it, but to me it seems like it's about 50% art and 50% science.
Yeah.
There's this intuitive feel for the sound and the rhythms and all this. It doesn't come from, putting numbers together and frequencies. It's just the knowing, and you put that together with the science. And man, you have an integrated, powerful package, and you manifest that so beautifully in your work.
Well, thank you. And like you said, all of the people that work for iAwake kind of take that in their own way, multifaceted approach. And so I applaud the rest of the composers that are working with iAwake too. It's just a good team assembled here.
That's really, I mean, I didn't realize, first of all, I didn't realize that I thought the brain was just subtracting and entraining, but you're saying that the brain is intuiting what's actually happening with, I suppose, interference patterns out in nature when you have two different beat frequencies happening.
Right. Yeah, we're
so
wired to do that.
Yeah, that's fascinating. That brain of ours, I tell you.
Right.
But the other thing is that so I have listened to binaural beats music and found some of it effective and some not. I haven't realized that if I've listened to the other types of sounds that you mentioned, isochronic tones and all, but I didn't even know that you could blend all three. And my next question was going to be to both of you, how did you decide, maybe you decided the music first, or did you decide what frequencies to use or what? Because I mean, I'm going up into gamma, and I know that you're not using gamma beats on this thing. So my question has been all along, how in the world are you getting such powerful effects from alpha, theta, or from delta? So that you get so high, and there's so much vibration of the subtle energy body. So how did you decide it, and what did you just end up doing, and why? Or who decided even?
Well, no, I can speak to the music for a moment about that. Oftentimes I'll start like you thought. It does start with the music first. You want to sit down and do so. I might have a handful of different ideas or projects, and okay, I got this alpha thing here and so on. But once you sit down, you start kind of getting inside the sounds. You're going through your sound bank, and you're like, oh, you kind of get a flavor or a vibe. You get what's the mood, and it starts kind of creating itself. And once you kind of get in that space, 30 minutes into it, I have a sensibility of like, oh, you know what, this is a real calm space that feels like a nice, clear, focus, alpha kind of space. So why don't I kind of start approaching it more that way? And similarly, I'd say with some things like a delta, I might be a little bit more in the beginning mindset, knowing that I want to create something that might be more of a lullabying, very calming experience, because delta is a little bit more defined that way. But when it comes to things like gamma and whatnot, we might be creating a guidance, and the opening for people to move into that space, whether the target be alpha or whatnot. We're just inviting them to move into that space. And it's encouragement. It's not like, well, you have to go here just because that we decided that. So I think the intention of the listener has tons to do with where they go. Or there's no limiter just because it's targeting, theta. all of the brainwave frequencies are present all the time, just what's dominant. But who's to say that just because we're encouraging one thing, that the intention and the soundscape itself doesn't allow that, like you said, the gamma to move through. If that's kind of a feedback or a reality of the state one enters, that's great. It doesn't have to be necessarily that the track is reflecting that directly. I think it's great if it happens, you know. So it's just encouragement to open and to that intention of the listener. That's a powerful thing.
So you're leaving a space for people to be able to experience it whatever way is right for them, as you're saying, according to their own intention. Yeah.
It's always my thought about it.
Yeah. So, you know, we're taught to do music in certain ways. As awakened mind trainers, music is supposed to be a soft cushion that is very much in the background, has no structured melody, because we don't want people to get hung up into actual music. And so it was always going to be a question, you know, how you guys were going to handle the music. And I just found that that it was such a beautiful, not a contrast, a complement, so harmonic to these incredible meditations that Anna, and maybe this is a good place for me to say something about these. So I got in touch with John on these 3 meditations that were among the 54 I recorded earlier this year for the Meditation Center that's up on the Mind Mirror portal. And
my God, there's 54 more. I mean, there's 51 more. It's going to keep us busy for at least 6 months.
We'll have to talk. Yeah, and these 3 are taught in Anna's seminar 4, practitioner training seminar 4, where you're really going into spiritual states and helping the practitioners prepare for working with people who may have spiritual experiences, you know, even in a plain old alpha development meditation, because as Leigh has just pointed out, people can go anywhere they want or need to go. And Anna did those 3 meditations as part of her spirituality and EEG program that she taught at Esalen for literally 30 years, 3 to 4 times a year. And those meditations had the most incredible effects on people because the language is so economical. I mean, she was a brilliant meditation writer in the first place. We all know that. But in these particular ones, I mean, she is absolutely in your head, in your body, in your spirit, and taking you for a ride. And so the question was, what could music do to amplify the experience? And absolutely succeeded. That scan and clear on, I think it's the Kundalini, or I kind of lose track. And so just run us through what it would be like. So you sit down with this guided meditation track. You've got this track, Leigh. And you do what? You're listening to it? Okay, so clearly you were your own guinea pig for all these starting at age 16.
Let me speak to that.
Okay, great.
If without dumb luck, I would have been buried decades ago. But Leigh sent me these tracks, no guided meditation, and I'm like listening to them. These are very powerful. Then a couple of days I get your stuff, and I'm going, and I put them together, and it's just like, oh my God, this is some of the best stuff ever. And I wanted to add to that, when you're putting together guided meditations, of course you have the container, the music, the entrainment, all of that is essential, what the guided meditation says, but equally important is the voice of the person who's doing the guided meditation. And when I heard your stuff, I listened to it without anything the first time, and I was, oh my God, there's an incredible transmission of consciousness and power coming through this woman that I know and love. This is awesome. So when we put those 3 things together, it was just, you know, the stars were in alignment, everything worked. And it was just amazing. So that's,
you had some interesting experiences too, didn't you, John, when you did those meditations?
Indeed.
Anything? Yeah.
Well, I don't want to interrupt completely, but yeah, I had some very powerful energetic experiences, especially with the energy one. And anyway, just remarkable. And,
Yeah. And the thing I was thinking about was your dog Lucy passed away,
oh,
and you were
that's
listening
right.
to these meditations, and they were helpful in keeping you plenty high.
Yeah,
As
yeah.
you
I
go
was
through that
deeply
experience.
grieving the loss of my dear friend Lucy. She'd been with me night and day for 9 years, just about. And, hard. Uh,
It's amazing how things appear just when you need them, isn't it?
yes, indeed. And of course, we're all, the three of us here. We're meditators, and of course, Jung said the more time you spend going deep, the more it seems to affect things on the outside. He coined the term. I think he coined the term. I got it from him anyway. Synchronicity, which is like dumb luck, God's grace, however you want to express that. And it just all came together, and um, just remarkable. It's just so exciting. So you think you've done your best work, and then things keep unfolding. It's like you know, it's.
I love it. I love it.
How could you
And,
do better than Revolver? Well, there's Rubber Soul and Sergeant Pepper's still. It's like
right.
anyway. I'm dating myself.
Love to be there. Yeah. Yeah. And so Leigh, did you listen to the meditations, just go through all the way? What did you think? So you're a meditator too? Is that what I just heard John say?
Well, to a degree, I don't think I have this same kind of stringent kind of daily practice that a lot of people have, but I spend a good amount of time going into kind of a self-reflective place, using a lot of times the type of music that we do. And also, I'd say another way to, because meditation is one term. I'm a graduate of and been working with Hypnosis Motivation Institute in Tarzana, California for over 20 years. It's kind of part and parcel, but learning and applying hypnotherapy, it kind of becomes part of your daily thing. So you might call it a self-hypnosis, you might call it a number of different things. And so kind of for me,
We call it meditation.
yeah, it's
Writing music.
it's
Sure,
a
it's all
Venn
meditation.
diagram, it's an overlap of things. So, but certainly for me, like John had pointed out, they kind of realized the synergy of some of my work to match up with this project in a way that I wasn't aware of until it was presented to me. So for me, it was kind of an after the fact part. So going through and listening to the material for me was kind of a discovery of that involved the music at the same time as the meditation. So I can't say that I sat with the meditation wholly on its own to appreciate it from that level. But what I do know is, I've been in the business of people doing guided meditation and hypnosis for a long time now. And there's a certain quality of voice, like John was talking about, that captures the listener the right way. There's a lot of people out there that try, and oftentimes it might sound like they're reading something and you're like, okay, that's great. So it takes a combination of somebody that really owns it and knows it and is really
Exactly.
heartfully trying to guide somebody. And so it's spot on with this project, really spot on.
Yeah, Judith, did you feel like when you were recording it, it's like, I'm nailing this, I got this? Was it just like coming through you, or did you have any idea what you were doing there? I mean, did you feel how good it was?
Yeah, I had to record the whole 54 meditations in 3 days.
Good Lord.
So I was in the studio, and if you're not in the zone in a meditation, you can just screw it up. You're reading a script, certainly, but you're sitting there in this big space all by yourself, and every now and then there's a traffic noise you hear outside, and you go, oh, that's going to bleed over into the recording. And and then every now and then you want to sneeze, and so clearly you're present to yourself and you're not like totally in it.
That's the equivalent of a Zen slap when you have the sneeze in the middle.
But honestly, in these three meditations, I did feel like I was absolutely in the zone. And one of them, I don't remember, I think it was expansion and contraction. I I came back and listened to that, and I said, that is too fast. That is just too. So it was the only one of the 54 I recorded a second time. Went back in the studio and did that one over again. So I really made sure that it felt right. They all felt right to me as well. Um, and of course, I'd heard Anna lead them, so that was informing to some extent. But yeah, I did kind of feel like I was owned it in the sense of being in the zone when they were done. Yeah. So Leigh, so what happens then? So you listen to this voice and this meditation, and you know what it's about. And then what do? Like, you just sit there and twiddle your thumbs and go ta 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 ta, ta. Or do you sit down at a piano or play with your
That's
guitar, and you get a little riff, a little progression of notes, and go and then go, no, not that one. And how's that actually unfold, the creative process, so that you
Okay.
end up with a beautiful, beautiful tracks that you did?
In a general sense, how I approach sitting down with, whether it's an idea that's its own concept or something else that I'm trying to match and join with. Yeah, you kind of just sit in a space for a minute and get a few ideas in your head, but then you got to pull out the synthesizer, and you just, I'll start with one note, really, and the second note that you play, for me, always determines the direction you're going to go in, because it's relative, it's always one thing versus another that creates like the feeling and the energy movement of music in general. That one note changing can be the whole, it changes the tension. There's tension and resolution in music between any two notes, really. That's so I apply that, starting with that kind of an idea, or what's the tonality, just the sound font that we're selecting. Something can sound very soothing and something can sound very jarring, even if it is just one sustained note, based on the frequency spectrum of you have a sawtooth type of zzz, buzzing type of sound, or you have something that's more of a soothing sine wave type of very gentle thing. And so a lot of it comes together, I suppose, intuitively at this point, but certainly you're pre-selecting things that work well together, but then it just starts formulating itself based on this note versus that note. It has a certain feeling attached to it. So I work a lot with kind of that feeling part of it. What's the feeling that comes up when I'm hearing that, and then you move it. You're just charting territory at that point as you go along. I like to create tracks that seem like they're timeless in one sense, to where the passage of time starts to become irrelevant. But at the same time, you are navigating and taking somebody through an experience, and you want to make sure you keep them buoyant throughout it. Without, you don't want somebody falling asleep because it's too darn relaxing. And you don't want somebody to come up because there's too much going on, and you want them to be able to focus, listen to, in this case, the listener. They have to be able to maintain that focus, and the rest should be a nice, subtle, soft pillow of a background without becoming too dull and like aggravating. And there's so many things to consider, but it does start off with that what's the feeling we're trying to maintain or evoke.
Yeah, I totally hear everything you're saying there, because so I've focused mostly in terms of the music and the quality of the music on that iAwake that I was listening to just a few days ago, and it felt like not just you were being wrapped in a cocoon that included the words, but it felt like that you were starting at this little one point, and then John knows what I'm saying because he's a blues guitarist too, so all you musicians will know.
Leigh's a good guitarist too. I've played with him before. He's very good.
Oh, lucky dogs.
Well, thanks, John. You could. That was fun. We got to do it again eventually.
We sure do. It was a high point, man. Wow.
Yeah, nothing more fun. And of course, all music, I suppose, works this way, is that you're taking a strand, and then with the synthesizer, another strand. And so this texture is being woven on different levels, and an expansion of each of those sounds. And then it's holding you in suspension. It gets to the point where it's holding you in suspension, and you just, you hear the music, but you're really just following words. You know, it's the music is like supporting you, and you're following the words. It's like there's nothing but the words, because somehow this cocoon has started to vibrate around you, and you're vibrating with the cocoon. I mean, it was really a phenomenal accomplishment. And I see now, if you're using all these different types of sound technologies, as John said, the art and science of music and psychoacoustics, I see that incredible amount of finesse has gone into this. What's work? I mean, John, I know you've gotten some incredible feedback from people about these meditations. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what keeps me going. Yeah, we really do. And, all the time, it's just mind blowing. People say it changes their lives, and thank you. And they're so grateful. It's just like, God, thank you, because I'm the personality type. Do I need that? For me to hang around in this world, I need to figure I'm doing something useful. It's not enough just to have fun. I think I got over that a couple of lifetimes ago. So, this has been really, really, really just thank you, universe, for allowing me to do this, and the synchronicity of meeting the talent and meeting the people and the team that we brought together, meeting you, Judith, among other things. We've done things together over the past decade at least, and it's just extraordinary.
Blessing to us all, an instrument of blessings. That's what you two guys are, and Pam too, in getting this out to the world.
Yeah.
Of course, I have 5 billion questions, but I thought maybe now would be a good time to open this up to other people's questions. We have some people online here are just incredibly brilliant and talented, from a sleep scientist to a holistic doctor to psychotherapists, just the whole gamut. And you must have, from your own unique perspective, some questions for Leigh and or John. So why don't we just open this up to you right now?
Yeah, and I love that exchange between you two guys. That was just, it was just honey to my soul. Thank you for that.
I'll ask a question. This has been a great presentation. I've really enjoyed it. I've been following the iAwake literature and your work for a while now. And what I think fascinates me is that you have combined a group of modalities into music as a background. And yeah, our brains are amazing in what they do and how they interpret through the senses, and that they look at the difference between inputs. I mean, we're filters of our environment through all 5 of our senses, and perhaps a few others that we don't even know about yet. So I'm really fascinated, because Edgar Cayce predicted that the next real healing would take place through sound. And I really think that what you're onto is that merging not only of art and science, but really of a type of healing that is very effective to our brains. We really haven't focused on sound in science as much. We focused on the visual field. It was a lot easier to delineate. So the auditory field sort of got left behind, but it is so complex in terms of the harmonics that our brain picks up, interprets, and really filters through to get some sort of a bottom line to. And we now know that, the frequencies of the brain represent whole networks of millions and millions of neurons working together. And that if you tap into those frequency bands, you're tapping into those networks. And those networks can be changed and altered throughout the life. So, sound is a very ubiquitous way of getting in there and really manipulating those networks without her even knowing it. And that can be both positive and negative. So my question is, and this is something I've worried about, with AI, artificial intelligence, the ethics of all of this and how it's used and in what direction it goes.
Sure.
because we're still a down-up system, the brain, and what we're trying to do is activate a top-down system and sort of short-circuit evolution, which would take another couple million years to probably achieve. But we're on really the verge of being able to do that through technologies. And sound, I think, is one of those that kind of works below the radar that people don't even realize. I mean, you remember back, I don't know, 50 years ago, they were looking at subliminal messages through sound, through speech. And they worked quite effectively in the marketing business. So again, I'm right now we're in an experimental stage, but I worry about, how this gets directed. And right now it's still in a very benign phase, and I hope that will continue. And I hope it really is going to be the betterment and well-being for all of us, and really looking to evolve the brain and evolve humanity as a group. So that's just my take. How do you feel about that? And
Yeah, Deborah, I feel like I should be asking you questions. That was brilliant. Yeah, really good points, and I think maybe under the radar is a good phrase that you brought out, because when it gets over the radar, maybe, people are going to do the Darth Vader move, and start using it for bad things. But so far we haven't seen that, thank God. And, I've been thinking about is planetary travel. How in the hell are human beings psychically, spiritually going to be able to get in this little thing and leave the earth and maybe never return without something that is making their consciousness process all of the stressors of leaving your family, leaving your home, I'm a homebody, I'm an earth boy, I'm going to stick around here. Thank you. Unless it's astral projection or something. But anyway, how are we going to do that? And I just watched this really good series with Hilary Swank called Away. It was Away. And I really loved it. And it dealt more with the technology was really the technology we recognize. Our standard, and they were going to Mars, and of just all the psychological stressors. And I said, man, these people should be meditating with this technology. It would really help them process and get into a place where you can get beyond the loss of, the individual and into the big mind and do it. So thus far, we haven't had that problem. I did a lecture at Fudan University 2 weeks ago, which is like the Harvard of China. It's really, really, I said that like Bush, not Bush, like Trump, China. Anyway, it's a great, sorry. It's probably the premier research university in China, and gave a lecture with translator, and 1,400 people from the university were listening to it, and it was a big hit. And they were going to do a month course coming up in January, and it's like, wow, and of course with a great deal of humility, because Americans teaching meditation to the Chinese, which it goes at least 650 BCE, and some historians say it goes at least back 5,000 years of meditation in China. So, but they're open, and they want to hear it and want to learn it. So, I think if it might start a brain entrainment race. We'll probably have guys in dark suits showing up at a house. What are you doing? And but we're improving the brain, and we're consciously evolving ourselves so that we can survive these very trying times. It's time to show up or shut up. Basically, never have there been so many stressors. Never have there been so many of us around, and never have we've had such powerful technology, and never have we just seen the fracturing, in the different tribal developmental groups that we see now. So it's amazing that in these times of great evolutionary stress that we are creating a technology to help us evolve more quickly and more efficiently. And the interesting thing I think about this technology, it's not a dissociative thing. It doesn't leave anything behind. It includes the body, the mind, the soul, whatever that is. And I think I know what it is anyway, but all of this stuff is brought together. And not only does this technology do what traditional meditation does more rapidly and more efficiently for more people, it also does a lot of things that traditional meditation just is not geared to do. So it's pretty exciting. So as we begin to keep using it and understanding it and improving it and blending it possibly with other technologies, it's just going to open great vistas and great avenues of hope and healing, and our, you know, our innate human genius as conscious parts of the universe are just going to, you know, the potential there is to blossom and bloom and create the kind of world that we all dream about.
That's beautiful, John. You're talking basically, I guess, about the universal language of music and audio technology,
Yes.
to bring people, as it brings the two sides of the brain into balance, as maybe bring the east and west into balance, east and west of anywhere and everywhere. Yeah, yeah, that's beautiful, and I appreciate that you communicated that, whether you meant to or in that, whether you meant to or not. You know, basically iAwake's goals, which are very lofty goals, and to help the world be a better place, people be happier and more attuned to their meditative minds, basically, right?
Yeah, and I was thinking about Leigh when I first contacted you, you know, a lot of years ago to use one of your tracks to do this meditation. Money never came into it. I don't think I ever exchanged money at that point, you know, just sure, you're going to help people. And like, you know,
Right.
we were two guys trying to do good in the world, and it just didn't factor in.
Right.
So, you know, now with iAwake, yeah, making money is important because I got people to take care of, you know, and Pam and I are the last people to get paid, you know. So, I mean, and that's okay, you know, that's leadership, and that's a responsibility. But yeah, I just, you know, I deeply love and respect and care for everybody that's on the team, and we have grown together. You know, it's been really extraordinary to be a part
But
of.
you certainly, regarding money, you certainly make it accessible. I mean, and this is a perfect time to make sure I don't forget that there's a 35% off sale right now on these and other iAwake tracks. This is because this is your 10th anniversary, right?
That's right. I mean, 10 years.
Congratulations.
Yeah, no kidding. It's been so, yeah, it's opened doors, and I've met just wonderful people all over the world, and truly the sense of a human family. And, you know, and we do a lot of pro bono stuff too. We don't talk about it a lot, but, you know, if any people, you know, worthy cause, and they're doing experimentation, or they're trying to help, you know, women who have been hurt, or, you know, refugees, or everything, it's like our stuff is there, you know. So know that when people actually pay, they're helping support the team, and they're also helping us to get this out to people that maybe couldn't afford it otherwise. So that's always a part of it.
Beautiful, beautiful. And at the risk of leaving this lofty place that we're in right now, I just want to turn Deborah's question over to Leigh. So did you have any thoughts about that? Can audio technology be perverted or become dangerous in any way that we should watch out?
Well, first I must say that, Deborah, that was a very thoughtful question. As I was listening to you, I was like, I can go in so many different directions with that. But, you know, to keep it to that point, I feel like there's a safeguard in it. And let me come back to that really quickly, just to go onto the dark side of things for a second. Just like the CIA was able to take, you know, what it learned from hypnosis, you know, what that is, and they were able to do, you know, mentoring and candidate type of stuff. It's not the tool of hypnosis alone that they were able to automatically start manipulating people. What they were really putting together a dark agenda for breaking people down over a period of time to do some interesting things that who knows where it's at now. But that being said, there are perversions of good things that go on all over the place, you know. However, with this kind of technology in particular, I think there's a real safeguard. It's like taking light and love and trying to do something menacing with it. It's hard to do, you know, because this technology requires the participation of the person listening. You know, you can't really force it on them. This isn't mind control in any stretch of the sense. It's encouragement, it's guidance, it's support. It's allowing you as the listener to get into a state where you're open to that expansion and the possibility of paving new neural pathways through experience. Your mind and your brain learn through experience and association. Oh, when I listen to this, I have this experience. I'm going to start, you know, changing how I'm wired the more I listen to this to have more and more of those experiences, maybe with more and more ease, you know, the accessibility of it. And so it isn't, that really what we're talking about is this integrated experience of the listener taking this technology, but they have to meet it. It doesn't, it might relax somebody, the person that has no intention whatsoever. They're just like, okay, let's give it a whirl. They could be, texting about something totally unrelated and the music's going on in the background. It'll relax and they'll feel calm whether they're aware of it or not. But what it's not going to do is hijack their experience. But if that same person said, wait a second,
Yeah.
let me focus with this and work with it, it'll take them into some very deep and expansive places. And so I don't worry about the misuse of this particular technology because of that. People are not, they're just not going to participate in something they don't want to, and you can't kind of, I think is one area it's hard to do, even, I don't know, I could keep going on that, but so I'm not worried about that. But the other thing Deborah had brought up was Edgar Casey and how he mentioned or predicted even that the future of healing technology might well be sound oriented. I'm a firm kind of supporter of that idea. I think it's every entrainment composer's secret dream to stumble across some fundamental awesome thing that unlocks that even more. So we're open to that, and I think that's where it's going. But at the same time, the way I know I approach it, and I think the other iAwake participants approach it, is it's not really with the kind of surgical precision and that would get us there. I might, like I said, I might stumble on something. I'm more interested in just creating these gateways to experience, and it'll go where it goes. The field has grown, and so I'm excited to see where it keeps going. It's always different scientific papers being published about it. So we'll see. But I think it's definitely underappreciated or underserved from a kind of a university point of view. But I think it's getting there. It's a frontier still, but it's getting there.
Fantastic. Anybody else have other questions? Please feel free to mute and ask away.
John, I just had a quick question for you. Have you thought about combining this with light drivers, such as the V-Light?
We've thought about it, and we've had people that use our stuff that have actually done that with their own devices and stuff like that, and it seems to work fine. We have people that have experimented using this stuff while they're using psychedelics, hopefully in a responsible way, and we did a track with virtual reality. We called it Ancient Fire. And I'll just tell you about it. This is kind of deviating from your question, but where I normally live, we're in Louisiana now because we're helping to take care of my wife's aging mother. So, we're in Louisiana, which I have roots in. But anyway, so we're not in our first home in southern Utah, but near there's this Red Rock Cathedral. And this friend, his name is David Holliday, and he's a genius in many ways, a near saint. And he's an expert in primitive skills. And tribes have hired him to go back and teach them the things that they've forgotten about some of these things. That's how good he is. And so we followed him into this Red Rock Cathedral, and he started a fire using a hand drill, which is not as easy as it looks. And he was in this alcove, and the sun was going down, and you see the light reflection. And meanwhile, we're doing entrainment music, that has some didgeridoo stuff, and it's called Ancient Fire. And the idea is that one of the original entrainment technologies is just looking in the fire. I was a wilderness guide for many years. There's power. If you've done that at night, you just go and sit and you say your prayers, or you talk about your life, or you think about your life, and it's a very powerful thing. So we created this thing called Ancient Fire, and those two technology work together extraordinarily. And there's a company called Trip that's actually releasing the shorter version of it. But anyway, so yeah, we're always pushing that, and it's my thing that kind of being an integralist, that there needs to be yes and, not like, oh, our technology is better than yours. It's just like all of this stuff, like Judith, the technology that you work with works brilliantly with our technology, and biofeedback and VR and all of this stuff. So I hope that wasn't too wide-ranging an answer.
Not for me. But I wonder, Gary, if you want to say something about this V light, because I'm unfamiliar with it and maybe others are too.
Well, I don't know too much about it. They have demonstrated at the tech conferences that we've been at. And initially, I just kind of ignored it. It seemed too woo-woo, even to me. But subsequently, I've been doing some research on that, and they've gotten some really amazing results with people who are very high-level meditators using the V-light, finding that they can go into even deeper states. Also, they have one that I've heard of that is not, I don't think, commercially available, but it's a research facility where people can adjust the frequency of the light. So they've had, say, Sinjin Young or some of the other high-level meditators in, and they've been able to play with the light adjustments and gone into very, very deep states. They said, wow, this is even, deeper than I've ever been before. It's where I want to go. So recently I just have been looking into non-dual awareness, awakened mind, or awakened awareness. And they were saying that at that level, that they have, the people go into 125 hertz gamma, which we can't even measure yet on our system.
Right.
So it's when you get into that state of high awakened mind, awakened awareness, non-dual, you begin to develop this extremely high gamma, apparently. Studies are very, very small, and so we can't really say for sure, but it looks like it. Anyway, that's just sort of what my understanding of the V-light, and I was just thinking, well, if you put on the V-light, that actually drives various areas of the brain with that visual light that they use, the red frequency, I think, infrared, and combine that with the sound that you're using it, so that the sound and the lights are working together. You're actually stimulating the entire cortex of the brain and the audio visual system in a totally new way. So just, kind of thinking about these things.
Yeah, thank you. And a lot of our tracks, Eric Thompson did a lot of pioneering work, has subtle energy embedded in it. And this is stuff you can't be measured, like electromagnetism. It took a while till they figured out how to measure that, but you can feel it, and you can reflect. I mean, it's very ancient, it's chi, it's ki, it's prana, it's all this stuff. But, and we have some tracks that have nothing. I think our heart wave meditation track has nothing, doesn't have any entrainment, just a subtle energy embedded. It's one of our best-selling tracks. And we don't understand it. It's just like, what is gravity? Well, we can, talk about what it does, but, it's what it is and why it happens, we don't know. So there's some really interesting stuff in there. That's part of what we do also.
Well, now that's interesting, because I remember for an IM program where we had you on before that, I did that heart wave and hooked up to the mind mirror for it. And it's only 7 minutes long, and it's so powerful.
Yeah.
And I had like way, way high 98, 99% awakened mind at training level 5. And my heart went, I've never seen my heart have literally almost a sine wave. And I just came out super expanded. But I thought that there was nothing but the music in there. So that's really interesting. It was the subtle energies in there.
And that's the key. That's how we can measure it, and the response of the human brain and the human body. But just per se itself, we haven't developed the instrumentation to do that yet.
And I love the way that you guys are beta test your products, and this one, the In Out and Through, volumes 1 and 2 as well. And would just encourage everybody. I mean, it ultimately comes down to the subjective experience. And there are some phenomenal sentences of feedback from the beta testers. And they are absolutely loving these tracks. They love everything, music. They've even said they like the voice. But they're loving the meditations and having these incredible experiences. And so you do your homework. You make sure that people. And in fact, speaking of that, I think I've informed you guys about this before, but if not, oh, no, Oksana included it. It's up on the imevents.tilde.ws homepage right now as bonus track. And it was James, the guy who had this unbelievable Kundalini arousal.
Oh, Scott
on
McGreevy, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, this was on actually gathering the healing energy, and John and Pam did a video with Scott and talked about what his experience is, and maybe this is a good time to point out too that, of course, we always want to stay very nice and grounded after these meditations. You know,
Yeah.
should you buy this one and try it out, and make sure that after the meditation, if you're buzzing or vibrating, just go back to your ordinary life and it'll be fine. For Scott, it didn't actually work that way. He had about 2 weeks of a serious Kundalini arousal. So it's a good idea and extremely interesting to watch this video John and Pam did with him, where he's talking about what changes he went through and what was necessary to get him grounded, and how he's so much more expanded now. He'd been doing something like 10 or 20 years of Tibetan Buddhist meditation, had never gone anywhere anywhere like where this meditation took him.
Yeah, and
So,
this guy, I mean, you know, when you listen to the interview, you're not talking, this is not a schizophrenic break or something. This is an eminently sane young man. He's from Northern Ireland, and very, very brilliant and very introspective and really aware, you know, the process. Very inspiring if you guys want to check that out.
great video, great interview. And that's a free, it's on the same webinar webpage. Any other questions? Austin, did you have a question? I thought you were going to unmute a little earlier.
Yes. Is there a way to look at the results you get from Mind Mirror and determine which meditations you should listen to or listen to next, listen to first?
Yeah.
Well, we have a recording, a video on at our website, which you had me hooked up to Mind Mirror, and I think I was listening to Digital Euphoria, if I'm not mistaken. And you might want to say more about what that was like, Judith.
Well, so you're having a specific question about these 3 tracks, and maybe you're having a larger question too about where to start with awakened mind training. So this is a 2-pronged question.
Yeah, it's a larger question, like, you know, which of the meditations or you know, other musical tracks one should listen to based on your pattern looking like X versus looking like Y. You know,
Progressive meditations. Yeah. So these tracks that we're talking about here at present are analogous to the ones in Seminar 4, and that's on the portal, mindmirrorportal.com website, in the meditation center, and then you go down the menu, and you can go to Complete Brainwave Training Program.
Okay.
It was a dumb thing for me to name it, but it's true. It is complete in terms of going from awakening all the way to transcendence, and stopping points being awakening, refinement, mastery, and then transcendence. This was the whole program that practitioners do. And so these meditations we're talking about here are Seminar 4 meditations. But yeah, that is wonderful. And in fact, we're going to have a program pretty soon on that. In fact, we did just have a program explaining that that the most important thing about the meditation center, in which In, Out, and Through is located, is included, is that before, with the Mind Mirror 6, you were self-training to audio cues, musical cues, when you had pattern attainment. And that's training the state or the pattern of consciousness. These meditations or training in the meditation center or training the content. And so when you're training state and content together, It's incredibly powerful. I mean, it's the binaural beats of brainwave meditation training, because now you are following the meditation structures that are most certain to take you down into the awakened mind and higher states of consciousness. And you're seeing the patterns. So then you're making associations. Oh, I walked out into the environment and I noticed the bird flying across the tree, and that's when I had the aha, well, that's a landmark. So now you have something that you can remember in ordinary consciousness. Oh, I'm having a terrible day. This is miserable. It's raining. When was the last time I felt good? Oh yeah, I saw that bird. Whop! You go right back into the original state of consciousness. So the complete brainwave training program is designed to give you landmarks for beta reduction, alpha development, alpha theta firing together. What does delta feel like? The orchestration of all of those into the awakened mind pattern, and then these meditations we're talking about here, among others that are higher states of consciousness. So that's a great place to start. Now, why I said, just to get myself a little off the hot seat, is that it was kind of a dumb thing to name it that way, the complete brainwave training program, is because everything in the meditation center is a complete brainwave training program. It's just that in terms of what the practitioners take, those 4 seminars, it is designed, there's no question about it, because it's successive, it's progressive, it's awakening, it's expanding, and it's taking you up.
Okay.
And
Thank
if you have trouble with alpha production, if you have trouble with beta mastery, everything is right there in order. I didn't know any other way to do it. I'll figure it out later. Maybe.
One of the things I wanted to add, what we seem to find is that, over years of using this stuff, and I must have been doing it at least 15 years now before the advent of iAwake, is that you can get a very deep brainwave state without the sound, just because your brain has changed. Okay. I mean, it really, it trains your brain shifts. So the research from longtime meditators, when they look at their brains after they're dead and do autopsies, they can see this frontal development, and there's been a lot of stuff going on. And I feel I can do that. Like, thinking is optional for me now when I meditate. But I don't always want to do that, because I do a lot of really good thinking, about important issues. I think that our beautiful discursive minds have gotten a lot of bad press. I mean, if it's just, random monkey mindness, yeah, that's one thing, but maybe that's just releasing a lot of stuff anyway. There may be some positive stuff about that. But when you really get down to, creative breakthroughs and direction and understanding, and when you're writing or doing music or relationships or, world peace or whatever the hell you're struggling with, this technology really gets you into deep veins of thought where really good thinking can happen and wisdom can emerge. So you could be kind of selective about, okay, now it's just quiet, stillness, boom. Okay, and now's the time to let this highly evolved piece of hardware do its thing and see what we can come up with. So
yeah, I mean, life is going to take us exactly where we need to go in order to evolve, no matter what. But it is certainly for those who want to pursue conscious evolution, the meditation center meditations, including in, out, and through, are a very self-selected pathway, and a very powerful too. Okay, anybody else? Questions?
I have a question, which you may have partially answered already, and that was how, if at all, does the EEG feedback aspect of the mind mirror work combine with the sound technology, meditation technology that we're talking about here? How does that fit together?
That's a great question. So there is a setting in Mind Mirror Options that's called Simple Feedback, and you can tick that box for simple feedback. And so while you're listening, say to in, out, and through, or any other meditation in the meditation center, what you're going to hear when you turn the self-training program on, left click in the mind mirror, tap the T, or in the right click, turn on the self-training program for whatever pattern you're training, then you'll hear a gong sound. And so that is not going to interfere with Leigh's music or any of the other meditations, because the gong sound is, it's very soft. And in fact, I mean, Deborah is a sleep scientist. Leigh, John can tell you this no doubt more than Andrea. But my take on it is that that the brain is such a great listener that you can put that gong sound on very, very quietly. I mean, just almost inaudible. And so it won't interfere with the music. It'll just be something that's way in the distance that your brain will notice, but you won't be taken out of the meditation while you're listening to it. Yeah. But if you guys disagree with that, let me know. Anybody else?
May I ask a question? You mentioned the heart wave meditation. Can you go into that a little bit in more detail? I guess that you said that this has had a profound effect. What exactly are you working with in that heart math? Well, heart math. Heart wave, that was a little bit of a Freudian slip.
No, heart math works really well. I've worked with heart technology too. Like I said, I'm really, there's a kind of the corporate thing where everybody's competitors, which has some positive dynamics because you want to get better and better, but sometimes we forget the cooperative measures. And we have worked with heart math, and I think it's great technology, and it works well with what we're doing. Let me see. By the way, you can download the iAwake app for free at the App Store, and each.
Yeah, they're on phone now. They've transferred, everything's available on phone.
Yeah, so here it is, and I was going to look up because each track has a descriptor about what it's actually doing. So I was going to sort of try to use, heart wave meditation. Let's see what it says. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's just that you mentioned that that's probably your bestseller, and that
it's one of them. It's one of them. Yeah. So, yeah, that's what it was designed to do, and we just got it. Just constantly stays as one of our bestsellers. So, yeah, I don't know. We have at least 70. I don't know how many tracks we have now. We have a whole bunch because one product could be 3 or 4 tracks. I think PMP 3.0 is 17 tracks. So I never actually done the math and added it all up, but it's a bunch, and we could just stop creating anything new, and we could go on for the next 20 years with what we have, because it's like, this is still a very pioneering field. And yes, we've, sold our stuff to hundreds of thousands of people over the years, and people share them, and people steal them, and it's like for every paying customer, I'm sure you have X amount of people that figured out how to hack it. But I feel like people's karma will eventually catch up with them, and maybe by stealing our stuff, they're gonna turn into better people. So I don't really sweat that either. I don't I don't get enraged about it. It's like, hey, yeah, do what you got to do.
What I can tell you, Deborah, is that there's some beautiful uplifting music. I think I was strongly responding to the beautiful music in that heartwave track. Really gorgeous.
Yeah, and I just talked to a gentleman who turned me on to. There's an aging Russian scientist who lives in Oregon now, who's doing some great stuff with subtle energy work. And anyway, I'm in the middle of reading about 60-page article, but it's just some of the best stuff ever. And he was trying to get us connected because he's getting at the age where he kind of wants to turn this over, and our people are working with it. Douglas Prater is also incorporating subtle energy into a lot of the stuff that he's done. He created Infinity, amazing tracks.
May I ask you, could I ask you, John, what is your method for embedding subtle energy? How do you
I don't, and I don't understand it, and I can feel it. And I've done Tai Chi and Qigong And, you know, I was attuned to be a Reiki master. I don't know if I'm a Reiki master, but I've, you know, put hands on people and they get better. Really radical things happen. And I can't say I have the science to prove it. With my hands, it healed them, but it sure seemed like a likely, you know, thing. I have a lot of stories about that, just weird stuff. So, yeah, the energy seems to work. And I was also studied martial arts from a young age and got introduced to the idea of chi and subtle energy, and we've had very advanced martial artists use our technology and said it just changes the flow, and I mean it just becomes more powerful, the sensation of that. So it's pretty mysterious, and Western science just has quite figured it out. We kind of know how to create it, but I don't know how to embed it. That's for the technicians. Leigh, I don't know if you could add any light to that.
When it comes to the subtle energy, it's not my forte. It's
Yeah.
kind of enigmatic to me too. So
I wonder if it
Wish I could
has to
say
do
more.
with harmonics and resonance. Some multiplying, amplifying effect.
Yeah,
Well,
and we
something to
we
find out.
we thought about one time. Well, you know, it was after we broke with Eric, who's really good with that stuff. You know, and we're thinking, well, we can't really explain it. We'll get a question like this, and I'll go, I don't know, and you know, but we made the decision to keep going because people love it, and it seems to be doing good things, you know, and Jesus said, wherefore by their fruits you shall know them. So as long as we're getting positive feedback from people saying that, you know, it's helping them and doing good, hopefully our science will catch up. And that's the way sometimes it just goes with science. When we first started doing wilderness programs, we had no data about this would help people, but we knew it would help people. You know, we knew it from literature and the history of our species and the Native American wisdom, and our ancestors from all over the world would go out in these, you know, journeys and forays into the wildness and come back transformed. And later on, you know, a number of companies got together and we started collecting data, and we hired a PhD, and all of a sudden they said, yeah, this is da 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 da, you know, why it works. And they never got down the mystery of it, but one of the things they came up with is that one of the things that's determined, where I'm going off on a tangent, but made therapy the most effective, and unlike just Freudian therapy, and when there's a deep connection between the therapist and the therapized, if you will. And boy, there's no better way than traveling together for weeks at a time in wilderness to come together, you know, and it gets real. And and still we have lots of friends that are still running these programs, and I don't know how I got on that. Anyway, the science, first we knew it was effective, and then later on we were able to put it together and come up with more science. And that's my hope for the same thing that's going to happen with this kind of more experimental or mysterious part of what we do with the binaural and the isotronic. There's more, it's measurable, and there's a lot more data. In fact, we just published the research of a woman who's doing her PhD at CIIS, California Institute of Integral Studies in San Francisco, who just did a PhD on binaural beats and produced a lot of interesting new research. And where it didn't seem to have an effect, they couldn't see it, is when they didn't do it long enough. They test it for about 3 minutes, and data shows it takes about 8 to 10 minutes to really get the full effect. But otherwise, it's very researched. And of course, research, you know, if it's 10 years old, people don't like it anymore. You know, it's like, oh, that's old. You know, I don't know if the human brain has changed that much in 10 years, but there's tons of research that's been done since the 70s. And there's constant new, and maybe, you know, we're getting the Chinese and Fudan interested in this subject. They'll produce a whole new level of research from their perspective and from their lineage and their traditions. So we shall see.
And I think, you know, you answered that question that way. I had this lingering question about how you did the ropes or the wilderness courses and how effective it was. It sounds like that was a part of your life that in a way was a foundation or a cornerstone for what you're doing now.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I was really hurting and I was in a bad way. And I think it was a combination of this technology and my immersion in the wilderness and vision questing. And that's just come into fruition. In fact, we did a online vision quest course, right? About 2 months, about maybe 3 months ago. And it was just an inspiration. And we said, let's do this. And it was intriguing because, a vision quest is usually, it's a very individual thing. You go out and you find a place. And I take a lot of people out on vision quests, and I did a bunch of them myself. And, you said, find a place where it's okay to die. Right. So you find that holy spot, and you sit there and you fast for 3 or 4 days. And say, Creator, Great Spirit, here I am, give me a vision. And the translation in the Plains Indian is, it's lamenting for a vision. I mean, you're crying out in desperation to find a path. And boy, that was my wound. If I didn't find something worth doing, I wasn't going to stay around. Life was just, I just wasn't in for the experience and the partying and the fun. I had to find something meaningful. And anyway, so we did this this course. There were just 100 people, and they would go and they were using our track Vision Quest, which has a lot of subtle energy in it, among other things. And it became this group collective experience where people's visions and dreams and the synchronicities that were happening outside of the meditation and outside of the dream just all started coming together into a group experience. And it was extraordinary. And the response was just overwhelmingly positive. So it was like something really came together. And we're going to be doing that again in January, I believe. And we're going to do two. One is a work in collaboration with the Mankind Project. It's a men's thing. And the other is open, for both sides of the street and anything in the middle, So yeah, it does work. And I think we're gonna improve it this time around. There's like doing these meditations together, which brings us to the We Awake thing. When we were last summer, which seems like a decade ago, but remember when we be able to travel and get together with our friends? Anyway, so we all got together in Utah in our home there, and Leigh was so invited and so not able to go, and that was still one of the only bad thing, the only thing I feel lost about the experience. But we would get together and have a meditation room upstairs, and we all be listening to the same tracks, and we just notice how I mean, there's data that's been researched with TM, transcendental meditation, decades ago, that when people meditate together, there's a field that's created, and if you have a real advanced meditator, his experience seems to be transmitted to the others. But anyway, so we're all there meditating together, and we're going, wow. And so somebody said, we ought to do this thing called We Awake or something. It just came up in the group expression, and we said, let's do it. So we're doing that every week now. We have, inviting people to lead. Normally I'm doing it, but you get tired of listening to me. So we're having other people guide them. And, you say a few words, we do the meditation together online, and then the person who's guiding it does a Dharma talk of some sort. And that's when you can just feel the power over the internet and this non-local thing that happens. The spirit and is whatever this is not limited by distance or time. And it's very powerful. So yeah, think about joining us. And all of the past sessions are all on YouTube, so you can We Awake and you can go listen to the tracks and hear the talks that are there.
And how do they sign up for that, John? Do they go to iAwakeTechnologies.com and then find We Awake, or is it a different website?
I surely hope so, because the truth is, I don't know. It's not my job. I work on other things, and I have brilliant technical people working with me that do all this stuff. So I imagine if you go to our website,
I know what it is. I found it by Googling We Awake. And so it'll take you right into that part of the website. Yeah. It's strongly urge everybody to sign up for this, because after all, you're experiencing a track for free. And I must say, this link that I sent out, if you haven't watched the video yet, where John was leading Gathering the Healing Energy and giving a little talk, an intro before, and kind of riffing afterwards, it was absolutely
I'm a
brilliant.
riffer. I don't know if
You're a
you've
riffer.
noticed. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's a guitarist in you. And I tell you, it was just absolutely profound, the talk he gave afterwards. So if any of the others measure up, to this one, it'd be worthwhile to meditate with We Awake. And I was also going to bring up, as everyone knows, in the United States and even expatriates in other countries who are with us today, that we do have a presidential election on November the 3rd. And Sandra Hyde who's with us today also, had the idea of a group coherence meditation.
Oh boy.
I don't know if we're going to be able to pull that together, but I certainly would urge everyone to just meditate on calmness and peace and coherence. And that's what we're all about here today. This is why these meditations have these phenomenal effects, because it's balancing the brain, and that's what meditation does. And we can balance the psyche, the rather disturbed psyche of the American people right now by just sending out some good energy. And if you watch this We Awake meditation that I sent everybody the link for, send it out then. Listen to the meditation at the end of it. Let that be, you do your healing for yourself and send it out to the earth in that higher state. And I do believe, and I know all of you would agree, that this makes a palpable difference, a tangible difference in the quality of life for us and for others, and hopefully for the United States. Oh, it's almost a contradiction in terms now, but we'll just hold a high intention and say that this country can come back together.
Yeah.
So let me go to you, Leigh, before we close down, and just ask you if there's anything else that's coming to your mind that you would like to share about this or anything else, or if anybody has any questions for Leigh related to music or the beats or anything. This is the opportunity to ask.
Well, let me first say that, again, I'm glad that you had me here today. And if anybody has any questions, I'd invite that now before I say anything else to kind of summarize or conclude. Feel free to interrupt me if anybody has anything. I guess what I can say is I've already been a proud member of iAwake for, about 10 years, right, John? And during that time, I've seen how, obviously I'm trying to put my own stuff out there to the world through my own channels, but certainly as I've been joined with iAwake, I feel like that's been exponentially kind of realized. And so there's thousands upon thousands of people that are benefiting from what I'm doing. And then when we work with others like yourself, it's just a great synergistic formula that it's a tool that it's so accessible for just the people that they decide they want to do something. And it doesn't get a lot easier than just sitting and pressing play, having a tool that helps cut through the clutter of the mind and the distractions of the day. It's such a great help for people that otherwise, like me, and if you just told me to sit in the room and meditate, I got so many things that are going to try and vie for my attention and distract me, that it's great that, Sound of Music is there to help. And that's my way. That's been my way. I'm glad to share my experience and my expertise from that with the world. But still, so coming from this place of I've already benefited greatly personally, knowing that we're putting out all this wonderful stuff with iAwake, and now working with you, it's at another line of exponentiality that we're able to get it out there and help in a way that when I'm doing it, I'm not really too aware of how it's going to impact anybody. I just do what I do, but it's great to see how that's taken forward with other experts like yourself, and then other people. The feedback, when I read feedback, it's amazing. Like, I never even thought that experience was going to be possible from, the outset. And so I'm constantly surprised at the things that people experience, and so hopefully we can keep doing it and impacting people.
Well, we certainly thank you for the heart and the soul that you put into it, and of course your musical talent and audio talent. As I used to work for newspapers, and we would put that newspaper out, and every time I would think, you people have no idea what went into this. Laying down the type, writing the stories, laying down the type, correcting, laying in the corrections. I mean, laying out the pages. There's just so many steps and stages and so much knowledge and expertise that goes into a finished product. And you guys go to the iAwake technologist.com website. It's just gorgeous and beautifully packaged, and tens of thousands of people are seeing these Anawise meditations thanks to these guys. And we thank you from the bottoms of our hearts and the highest infinite pinnacles of our souls that you've done very great work here for us and for other people. And hopefully this will be the first of many enterprises that we do together. Yeah. Serve the world. May there be peace, please, on November the 3rd and thereafter.
Yeah, you bet.
All so much for being here. Had a wonderful time with you. Can't thank you enough. See you again soon, we hope.